Hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell, and the day my father tried to have me declared mentally incompetent was the day he destroyed his own life. But he didn't know that yet. Let me take you to Superior Court, Courtroom 4B, on a cold Tuesday morning in October. I was sitting at the defendant's table, hands folded calmly in my lap, while my father's lawyer paced in front of the judge like a predator circling prey. My father, Richard Mitchell, sat behind his legal team, looking confident. Almost smug. He thought he'd already won. He had no idea what was about to happen. You're probably wondering how I ended up here. How a daughter ends up in court with her own father trying to prove she's mentally unfit. Let me explain. 6 months earlier, my mother passed away. Cancer. It was quick and brutal, and it destroyed our family. But before she died, she did something my father never expected. She left me everything. The house in Connecticut worth $4 million. Her investment portfolio worth $12 million. Her shares in my father's company worth another $8 million. Everything. My father got nothing. Not because she hated him, but because she knew him. She knew that if he got control of her estate, he'd gamble it away within a year. My father had a problem. Luxury cars, high-stakes poker games, risky business ventures. My mother had been covering his losses for decades. But I didn't know any of this until after she died. When the will was read, my father's face went purple with rage. He stormed out of the lawyer's office, didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. Then one day, I received a court summons. Richard Mitchell versus Sarah Mitchell. Petition for conservatorship based on mental incompetence. My own father was trying to have me declared mentally unfit so he could control my inheritance. The petition claimed I was emotionally unstable, financially irresponsible, and suffering from severe psychological distress following my mother's death. It cited my erratic behavior and inability to make sound decisions. It was all lies. But my father had money, connections, and a very expensive lawyer named Harrison Chun who specialized in these kinds of cases. He'd successfully gotten conservatorship over 3 adult children in the past 5 years. I, on the other hand, had one small advantage my father didn't know about. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The hearing began at 9 a.m. Judge Catherine Reynolds presiding. She was in her 60s, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for not tolerating nonsense in her courtroom. Harrison Chin stood up, adjusting his $5,000 suit, and began his opening statement. Your Honor, this is a tragic case of a young woman who has lost her way. Sarah Mitchell, following the devastating loss of her mother, has exhibited concerning behavioral patterns that indicate she is not capable of managing a substantial inheritance. I sat perfectly still, my face neutral. We have evidence, Chin continued, that Ms. Mitchell has been engaging in reckless spending, has isolated herself from family and friends, and has made statements indicating she is not in a stable mental state. My father nodded along, playing the concerned parent perfectly. We're not here to punish Sarah, Chin said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. We're here to protect her. Her father, Richard Mitchell, simply wants to ensure his daughter's well-being and financial security during this difficult time. The judge looked at me. Ms. Mitchell, do you have representation? I stood up. I'm representing myself, Your Honor. Chen's eyebrow raised slightly. My father smirked. They thought I was making a mistake, showing up without a lawyer. Another sign of my supposed incompetence. Very well, Judge Reynolds said. Mr. Chen, present your evidence. For the next hour, Chun presented his case. He called my father's housekeeper, who testified that I'd been distant and withdrawn during family dinners. He showed credit card statements showing I'd spent $15,000 in the past month. He presented text messages where I told my father I needed space. Every piece of evidence was twisted to make me look unstable. My father even took the stand. I'm worried about her, Your Honor, he said, his voice trembling with practiced emotion. Since her mother died, Sarah hasn't been herself. She's making impulsive decisions, pushing away everyone who cares about her. She's not thinking clearly. I just want to help her before she destroys everything her mother worked for. I watched him perform, This man who'd lied to my mother for years, who'd burned through her money on gambling debts, who was now trying to steal my inheritance by destroying my reputation. Chun approached the bench. Your Honor, we believe Ms. Mitchell is suffering from severe depression and is not competent to manage her affairs. We're requesting that her father be appointed as conservator to protect her interests. Judge Reynolds looked at me. Ms. Mitchell, you've been quite quiet. Would you like to respond to these allegations? I stood up slowly. Yes, Your Honor. I have a few questions for my father, if that's acceptable. Proceed. I walked toward the witness stand where my father sat, still playing the concerned parent. Dad, I said calmly, you testified that you're worried about my spending, that I spent $15,000 last month impulsively. Is that correct? Yes, he said, nodding sadly. It's concerning behavior. Do you know what I spent that money on? He blinked. Well, no, but the amount itself. I donated it to the American Cancer Society in Mom's name. There's a plaque being installed at the research center she supported for 20 years.
Did you know that?
His mouth opened slightly. Chun shifted in his seat. You also testified that I've been distant and withdrawn from the family. When was the last time you tried to have a conversation with me that wasn't about Mom's will? Sarah, that's not fair. When, Dad? Silence. You claimed I'm emotionally unstable and suffering from severe depression. Have you asked me how I'm doing even once since Mom died? Of course I have.
When?
Give me one specific conversation. He looked at Chun desperately. The lawyer stood up. Your Honor, this is... I'll allow it, Judge Reynolds said, her eyes sharp. Answer the question, Mr. Mitchell. My father's face was red now. I can't remember a specific date, but... It's okay, I said quietly. I know you can't, because it never happened. I turned to Judge Reynolds. Your Honor, my father claims he's concerned about my mental health. But he doesn't know anything about my mental health. He doesn't know how I'm coping, what I'm doing with my life, or what I'm planning for my future. He only knows one thing, that I have money he wants to control. Objection. Chun stood up. Your Honor, this is speculation. Overruled, Judge Reynolds said. Continue, Ms. Mitchell. I pulled out a folder from my bag. I'd like to submit some evidence of my own, if the court will accept it. Proceed. I handed copies to the judge and to Chun. My father's confident expression was starting to crack. These are my bank statements for the past 6 months. As you can see, aside from the donation to the Cancer Society, my spending has been completely normal. Groceries, utilities, gas. Nothing impulsive or reckless. I pulled out another document. This is a letter from my therapist, Dr. Elizabeth Warren. I've been seeing her twice a week since Mom died. She confirms that while I'm grieving, I'm processing my emotions in a healthy way and show no signs of mental incompetence. Chun was flipping through the papers, his confident demeanor fading. And this, I said, pulling out a third document, is a psychological evaluation I had done last week by Dr. Robert Chun, no relation to my father's lawyer, who is one of the top forensic psychologists in the state. His evaluation confirms I am of sound mind and fully capable of managing my affairs. Judge Reynolds was reading carefully now. But here's the thing, Your Honor, I said, my voice steady. None of this actually matters, because this case was never about my mental health. It was always about control. I turned to face my father. Dad, do you know what I do for a living? His face went blank. You work in healthcare. Be specific. What's my job title? You're some kind of therapist or... Your Honor, I said, turning back to the judge, my father is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. He's asking to control millions of dollars of my inheritance. And he doesn't even know what I do for a living. Judge Reynolds leaned forward. Mr. Mitchell, do you know your daughter's profession? My father looked at Chun desperately. She works at a hospital, I know that. I'm a psychiatrist, I said clearly. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, MD, PhD. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist specializing in mood disorders and trauma. I completed my residency at Johns Hopkins. I currently work at Massachusetts General Hospital, and I'm the director of their Psychiatric Emergency Services Department. The courtroom went completely silent. I evaluate people's mental competence for a living, Dad. It's literally my job to determine if people are capable of making their own decisions. I've testified as an expert witness in 17 competency hearings. I've published 12 peer-reviewed papers on psychiatric assessment. My father's face had gone pale. So when you and your lawyer tried to claim I'm mentally incompetent, you were essentially claiming that a board-certified psychiatrist doesn't know her own mental state. That a doctor who evaluates mental fitness for a living is somehow unable to recognize it in herself. Judge Reynolds was trying very hard not to smile. Chun stood up. Your Honor, we were not aware of. That's the problem, Mr. Chin, the judge interrupted. You filed a petition to declare someone mentally incompetent without even knowing what they do for a living. That shows either incompetence or bad faith on your part. Your Honor, if we could request a continuance to... Denied. Judge Reynolds looked at my father with something like disgust. Mr. Mitchell, you came into my courtroom and lied. You claimed your daughter was mentally unfit when the truth is she's more qualified to assess mental fitness than anyone in this room, including me. I didn't lie, You omitted the truth, which is the same thing. She turned to me. Dr. Mitchell, do you have anything else to add? I pulled out one final document. Actually, yes. This is a financial audit of my father's accounts for the past 5 years, which I obtained legally through my mother's estate. It shows over $3 million in gambling debts, 12 failed business ventures, and a pattern of borrowing against my mother's assets to cover his losses. I laid it on the judge's bench. My mother didn't leave him her estate because she knew he'd destroy it within a year, just like he destroyed his own money. This conservatorship petition isn't about protecting me. It's about my father getting access to money so he can continue gambling. My father stood up. That's not, Sarah. You don't understand. Sit down, Mr. Mitchell, Judge Reynolds said sharply. Dr. Mitchell, is there anything else? Just one more thing, Your Honor. I looked at my father. I loved Mom. She was brilliant and strong, and she deserved better than spending her life covering for a man who couldn't control himself. This inheritance isn't just money to me. It's her legacy. It's what she built, what she saved, what she protected. And I will honor her by managing it responsibly and using it for good. That's why she trusted me with it. I turned back to the judge. I'm not mentally incompetent, Your Honor. I'm grieving. I'm heartbroken. But I'm also a successful doctor, a published researcher, and a financially responsible adult. My father doesn't want to protect me.
He wants to rob me.
Judge Reynolds picked up her gavel. I've heard enough. This petition for conservatorship is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering that Mr. Mitchell reimburse Dr. Mitchell for her legal expenses and the cost of the psychological evaluation he forced her to undergo. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Mr. Chen, I suggest you be more thorough in vetting your clients' cases in the future. This was a waste of this court's time and an attempt to manipulate the legal system for financial gain. My father's lawyer started gathering his papers, his face red. One more thing, Judge Reynolds said. Dr. Mitchell, does your mother's will contain any provisions regarding your father? Yes, Your Honor. It states that if he contests the will or attempts any legal action to gain control of the estate, he forfeits the $500,000 life insurance policy she left him. The judge smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Well, Mr. Mitchell, I suggest you consult with your lawyer about whether this conservatorship petition constitutes legal action to gain control of the estate, because I think it does. My father's face went from pale to gray. He'd just gambled away $500,000. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck again, and it was over. I packed up my documents while my father and Chen argued in furious whispers behind me. I could hear Chen explaining that he'd just lost the life insurance policy, that the judge was right about the will provision. As I walked toward the exit, my father called out, "Sarah, wait. Please." I stopped but didn't turn around. "I didn't know," he said, his voice broken. "I didn't know you were a doctor. I didn't know about your career. I'm sorry." I turned to face him. "That's the problem, Dad. You never knew. You never asked. In 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, 2 years of fellowship, you never once asked me about my work. You never came to my graduation. You never visited me at the hospital. You never knew anything about my life because you never cared to know. That's not true. You knew Mom left you out of the will. Instead of asking yourself why, instead of examining your own behavior, you immediately jumped to trying to take what she left me. You didn't even hesitate. He had tears in his eyes now. Real ones this time, not the fake ones from his testimony. I've lost everything, he whispered. No, I said quietly. You lost everything years ago. You just didn't notice until now. I walked out of the courtroom and into the bright October sunshine. My phone was buzzing with messages. My colleagues at the hospital checking how the hearing went. My friends offering support. My therapist reminding me I had a session scheduled that afternoon. But there was one message that made me smile. It was from my mother's lawyer. Your mother would be so proud of you. Call me when you're ready to discuss the scholarship fund she wanted you to set up for medical students from low-income families. I stood on the courthouse steps, looking out at the city, and felt something shift inside me. For months, I'd been carrying the weight of my mother's death, the burden of her expectations, the pain of my father's betrayal. But standing there, having just defended myself in court against the man who was supposed to protect me, I felt something new. Freedom. My mother had given me more than money. She'd given me the truth about my father. She'd freed me from the obligation to pretend, to cover for him, to make excuses. And she'd trusted me to build something better with what she left behind. 3 months later, I established the Margaret Mitchell Memorial Scholarship. It provides full rides to medical school for students from families struggling with addiction and financial instability. Students like I would have been if my mother hadn't fought so hard to give me stability. The first recipient was a brilliant 22-year-old whose father had gambled away her college fund. When I told her she'd been selected, she cried. I understood why. My father never contacted me again after that day in court. I heard through family friends that he'd moved to Nevada, presumably to be closer to the casinos. He'd lost the life insurance money, lost his credibility, and lost his daughter. I didn't feel guilty about it. Some people will try to drag you down to lift themselves up. And sometimes those people are family. But I learned something important that day in court. You don't owe anyone access to your success, especially people who only show up when there's something in it for them. My name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I'm a psychiatrist, a daughter who honors her mother's legacy, and someone who refuses to be anyone's victim. And I'll never apologize for that.
Not now.
Not ever.